So this is our first session. Yeah, in programming we start counting from 0, so it's our session number 1, and we're going to learn about the basics of programming so that we can understand how exactly to program. Yeah, hiyo tu ndo naweza waambia, nothing much about it, nothing fancy about it. Yeah, so Eric, if you're ready, maybe you can start the recording. Siko sure ulikuwa ushaanza. And okay, ishaanza.
Nimeanza vile umeanza introduction.
Okay, no worries. So allow me to also share my screen. We're not going to code a lot. Yeah, we'll code kiasi too, but let me share my screen. Okay. No. Okay, so kuna msana anaweza tuelezea like what is programming. You can just raise your hand and then uelezea what is programming according to what you know. What's programming? Yes, Daniel. No, me unmute. You can tell us what's programming.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I pressed accidentally. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. So basically programming, okay, you know computers are dumb. Okay, let me see if I'll get some visuals up with you. So computers are dumb, and you have to tell them what to do. Huwezi kuja tu and then you just okay, in short, computers are dumb. You have to tell them what to do. Computer haiwezi fanya kitu kama hujiambia. So you have to give it a set of instructions, and those instructions are given in a way known as programming. So programming is basically giving computer instructions to execute a certain task, and we do that by using a programming language. So picture programming. Okay, a task inaweza kuwa, you can have various tasks. You can list some examples of tasks maybe in the chat. So for me, I'll give an example. I can have a task of kujenga nyumba, sindio? That's the task I have in hand. And the way I'm going to accomplish it, no one cares how I'll accomplish that task as long as the task has been completed. So let's say my goal is, acha niseme, yeah, tuseme hii ni nyumba. So this is a house. You've just been given a task, kutengeneza nyumba. I don't care what you use. And we have various people hapa hivi. Yeah, tuko na watu hapa. Tuko na watu wengine. Let me just copy paste. So we have different users. I'm trying to move. Tuko na different users. We have all been tasked to create a house. So yeah, mnakumbuka hii story tulikuanga tunakuwa ya pig, the pig that built a house na matawi, mwingine akatengeneza na sijui mbao, mwingine akatengeneza na mawe. So that's a task. You've been given a task. We don't care what you're going to use. We bora tutengeneza nyumba. So you can find that the first users will decide, okay, sisi tutatumia simiti, tutatumia kokoto, tutatumia hii. In the end, they'll have their own house. The second users, they'll decide, okay, sisi tutatumia mabati na mbao, and they'll accomplish that. And the third user, they'll decide, okay, sisi will just tutatumia tu matope. Inakuanga matope, or what is Manyata made of? Ni matope. Yeah, so the third users will decide that's what we're going to be using. So that's basically the concept. Kila msee atatumia like their own name, and this brings us to vitu kama frameworks. Whatever framework you're going to use, that is sort of totally dependent on you. We can all build a front-end application using different frameworks. We can all build something but using different languages as long as the goal is working. So the end goal ndo huwa ina determine how exactly our system is going to be. So hawa watu wa nini, watu walitengeneza na mabati na mbao, they can decide they can also have a step by step process of how they're going to do it. Maybe wanaweza anza na kupigilia misumari kwa mbao ndio sasa wakuje waeke, ama waanze kuweka wazipigilie zipo already zishawekwa, like maybe kupigilia ukuta and all that. That's okay, that's normal, but it all narrows down to how fast was this task is executed, and also how much energy did it take to execute it. So upon your, let's say if we decide to go deeper into data structures and algorithm, utapata vitu za space and complexity, where you just try to optimize your code ikuwe fast and ikuwe memory efficient. So okay, what I was saying here, it depends, and that step by step instruction, okay, the whole process is programming, but the step by step instruction, that's an algorithm. So for an algorithm, you require to have like that step by step instruction. So the algorithm for building nyumba ya mawe inaweza kuwa maybe ni like first of all the requirements, okay, inaweza kuwa na like that step by step process and whatever. So kama bado tuko sawa, you can react aje. Just type a Z in the chat. You can type a Z in the chat kama hadi hapo uko sawa with that basic understanding. So it doesn't matter what language you're going to use, it doesn't matter what framework you're going to use, as long as the task gets accomplished, uko sawa. Yeah, as long as the task gets accomplished. But now it depends where. I can decide, because I've learned one language, that doesn't mean that hiyo ndo language yenye iko. I can learn JavaScript, but when I get employed somewhere, nipate wanatumia PHP. But one thing about programming, once you've understood the basics of programming, it will be much easier to transition into a different language, because the differences kwa hizi languages mostly inakuanga it's mostly about the syntax. The same way I can talk nazaongelesha Kiswahili and I can talk to you in English. I'm delivering the same message but using the different wordings. So syntax tu ndio inakuanga different. And what is syntax? Syntax ni, I'll just call it like okay, venye tunakuanga na vitu kama ngeli and all that in Kiswahili and grammar in English, that's the same in code. We call it syntax. Yeah, so also another thing, we also need to understand how computers communicate to each other. So the language of computers inakuanga binary. For those who don't know binary, that's just zeros and ones. That's binary. That's how computers communicate. And because humans, actually kitambo people used to just write zeros and ones, but because humans, we don't really speak in binary. We don't really speak in binary, or we can just call it machine code. This is where now we have programming languages zenye tunaweza tumia and the computer will be compiled and understand. So the first term that you're going to have here is a compiler. Okay, we are going to have a compiler and also an interpreter, depending on whatever language you're using. Whatever the spelling is. So interpreter. So what a compiler does, I can decide to use whatever language I'll use. So in this case, I'm using C. And the instruction I've given the computer is to just say hello world. So that's what I've told it. But if I just tell the computer, okay, say hello world, computer haijui what this is, the computer knows zeros and ones. And this is where I can now decide to use any language of my choice. I can decide to write it in Python by doing print hello world. I can decide to use it in C by using the whole include stdio.h, hizo vitu zote, and then hello world. That depends. So we have various types of languages. We can start with the low-level languages. Okay, they're not like really types. Not to explain the concept of how compilation works. So I'll use a language like C, and I'm going to actually open a terminal. And okay, whatever I'll do hapa mtaignore kiasi. You'll come to understand it later on, but I want you to get the concept kidogo. So ignore this, also ignore this. I'm going to create like a file, and I'm going to call it hello.c. So I'm just creating a file that is called hello.c. Check a full screen. I'm creating a file called hello.c. And this file will just print hello world. So the language is just the language the language that I'm using in this case is C. So we're going to do include stdio.h and then int main. Okay, what I'm using is Vim. You can use VS Code, you can use a book, you can use any IDE of your choice. So okay, do you really remember C? Printf hello world. Ilikuanga na semicolon, I guess, and then we return 0. Okay, so that's our line, our code, and it's just telling us to print hello world. So if I come here, utaona we have that file that is known as hello.c. Now that's our source code. I'm the human readable code, but the computer can't understand that. So in this case, we have to use a compiler. We compile that code into machine code, a language that the computer can understand. So we have various, okay, kila language iko na ni yake, their own way of being compiled or being interpreted. So if you look at a language like Python, Python itakuwa interpreted because it will just run directly. And a language like C, you have to first of all compile it so that you can get the machine code. So in this case, for me to run that file, I'll first of all have to compile it. And C has a compiler known as GCC. This is just a compiler, and if I can just say GCC hello.c, itakuja compile that file. Nothing has happened, but if I show you the files again, you can see there's a new file that has been created here. And now that's our executable file. This file, I can just come and run it. And if I run it, imeniambia hello world, because that's the instruction that was given. Now, right now, if we try to view your file a.out, that is the compiled version of the machine code version, utapata this thing is unreadable. This is how the code. It's unreadable. I can't read it, but the computer can read it. So with that, I hope you've gotten the difference between the whole compilation process of how this works. If we're okay, you can type Y in the chat. So far, if we are together, you can type a Y in the chat. So that's how the whole execution process works. And with that, so we have different types of, how do I call it? Yeah, we have different types. Some languages are compiled, others are interpreted. So for the interpretation, this is a language like Python. So let me just show you how it's done. So I'll come and create another file, hello.py. Also, tunakuanga na file extensions. In this case, if you see .py, .py is a Python file, .c is a C file, .mp4 is a video file, .mp3 is an audio file, .png is a picture. So we're going to create another file, and the same instruction. We just want you to print hello world. But if you notice, syntax will be different. So you're just going to say hello world or whatever we need to say. So this is just how I represent it in Python. And if I want to run this, I'll just come and do Python. Okay, I'm using Python 3. So I'm on Linux, so si tunatumia Python 3, or you can just use Python. So Python 3 and then the file hello.py. Umeona may happen immediately. I haven't had to compile the code. So for a language like Python, it undergoes interpretation. At finally, like any compilation, the language will be executed. I mean, yeah, the code will be executed directly. So unapata some of the challenges, some of the differences that you can find here. Let's say I've been given an application and nataka kupatia like the client. For a language for the compiled languages, an example is Golang. For the compiled languages, I can just provide them with the executable file. Because actually on your machines, if you want to download an application, whether it's on desktop or a mobile app, you just give them the executable run. You're never given the source code and you do this and this. So unaweza ona the difference between Python hapo and how C does it. They all perform the same function, which is printing hello world, but the difference is only in the syntax and also how it's been executed. So And this is where now tunakuja in things like errors, error handling and all that. Let's introduce an error in our Python file. Tukose tu kufunga the nini ama tufunge but tusieke the quote, and then we just come and run it. So okay, let's run it using Python 3. So we've gotten a syntax error. Alafu this error has been caught in runtime. So we have we have the runtime and we have the compile time. We have a runtime and a compile time. So for the runtime, as you know, Python nimewambia that nini is being inakuwa run immediately. There's no compilation taking place. It's being interpreted. And that's when unapata the error will be caught in runtime when this thing is running. So if I'm to let's say in the application I want to submit to someone, I've already caught the error. Now let's introduce like a similar error kwa ile ya C. So I'll just ndeka to that common error in C whatever tunapatanga, which is eliminating the semicolon. And then I'm going to compile it. So if I come and compile it, I'll get a compilation error, which means there's no way a kitu inaweza run without, okay, it first of all has to be fixed for me even to even get an executable file that will be able to run. So assuming, okay, because we don't work with one files, like if you try to work on big projects, utapata will be having a lot of folders, a lot of files. So for a language like Python, probably, because I know Python executes line by line, if I'm not wrong. Eric Nindo to Python, you can tell me Python executes line by line. So unapata other functions can run, everything else will run, but ikifika ni the part where there's a nini, hapo ndo itakuja ikatai. But for a language like C, the ones that have been compiled, it has to like run the whole file, and then if it's okay, it'll compile. If it's not okay, it will give you the error. So yeah. So have you gotten like how that works so far? Yeah, so basically that was just a basic knowledge that I thought you guys should know before tuingie now into the basics of, let's say, understanding how to now write the code. We're going to be using Python because it's beginner friendly. But after this, I'll just task you guys, just go pick a language of your choice. Nilombe you can do research, maybe look for your target company and see what languages they use, and then maybe you can pick from there. But once you're comfortable with the basics of programming and having at least one language, you can transition easily to any language. Yeah, kuna some languages that are sort of hard to learn and you sort of have to like relearn everything that you knew. Yeah, so before tuanze, I'm going to take any questions before tuendele that is. Oh, Ivy, is this a beginner meeting or? Yeah, this is a beginner meeting. We had a first meeting, but that meeting was just for introduction and also kuelezea like the outline of what we'll be doing and all that. Yeah. So after, you can just pick a language of your choice, whether it's Golang, whether it's Python, whether it's JavaScript, depends on what you're going to use it for. Yeah. So hapo it requires some research ndio ujue which language is good for what. That's when unapatanga kuna kwanga na watu wa Kotlin, watu wa Flutter, where it depends because some languages also compile faster than others. Zinakwanga executed faster than others, so unapata kuna kwanga na some conflicts there. But for me, yeah, just pick a language that sitawambia like which one to pick. Hapo it's just a nini. So in this case, I'm going to just use an online IDE. In case you want to follow along, let me share the link. You can just use this link and you can follow along. Yeah, after this, maybe that language you can decide to pick, whether it's Golang, you can unaweza enda kwa the documentation and you know how to install it on your device, whatever operating system you're using. And yeah, you can take it from there. So let me zoom in. So whatever we have here, this is just an online version of, it's an online version of Python, where you can just run it online without having to install anything. But if you have Python already installed on your machine, unaweza run. So Okay, we're going to just do a simple thing. Kueleza to the basics. We're going to manipatia a simple project that you can do. I prefer doing project-based learning compared to kueleza tu kila kitu at once so that you can join the dots and see how this works. Yeah, so what do you guys suggest to build? Just something minimal. Msianze kusema hapa tutengeneze sijui to hack NASA or what. You can give an idea. Okay, Rogers amesema calculator. Yeah, tutaenda na idea ya Rogers. We'll build a calculator. But for calculator, I think it's just the arithmetic in it. Yeah, it's the arithmetic in it. We'll also do that. Yeah, let me see. So yeah, let's do a calculator. So in this case, the first thing that you want to do, we want to create a pseudocode. So we have a pseudocode. Pseudocode is just a human readable way of how do you call it? Pseudocode. So pseudocode is basically it's like an English way okay, it's like a way of representing algorithm, but now using English. So we can create a pseudocode here, what a calculator does. So let's see. Okay, see now the right symbols up, and I feel kind of lazy, so I'll just be writing down some stuff. So for pseudocode, a pseudocode has a start and an end. So the first thing that we'll need, we can just ask for the user input. Like we can just ask them for their name in kama tuku plan, so that before you go and start coding, you can at least have utakuwa na the whole thought process. So we can start by, okay, start ni execute the program, and ending is killing the program. I don't want my program to continue running after I've closed it. So we can start by, let's say, welcoming the user. Maybe welcoming the user, and then maybe asking for username, and then asking for digits to compute. Is it compute or calculate? Whatever. And then doing the calculation. And lastly, okay, we're going to identify the, how is it called, operation, whether it's addition, subtraction. We're going to identify the operation, and then we'll do the calculation, and we're going to submit the answer to the user. So that's my thought process. That's how we design the calculator. So we can start. So the first thing, we just want to tell the user, welcome to our calculator. By that, because it's Python is just say print. Enanga story mingi like C, I don't know, you have to import a library to do this. So you can just print, and we usually enclose it in a nini. It depends with what language you're using. So to enclose in, what is this thing called? Brackets. Yeah, to enclose in brackets, and because it's a string, a text, we'll put it in quotes. We'll just say welcome to our awesome calculator. And that's our first program. That's the, yes?
Kuna mtu ana request zoom in kidogo.
Okay, nione ikiwa kubwa. Let me zoom in again and again. Let me close. Is that better?
I hope so.
Can you guys see? Mnaiona vizuri? Because I'm not seeing the same thing that you're seeing. Sijui kama mnaiona ikiwa vizuri. For me, naona ikiwa too large. How is that? Okay. So that's the first step, or the first instruction, which is welcome to our awesome calculator. I can decide to run it. If I run it for output, this is the text that we've been given. So I've just told computer, I want you to print welcome to our awesome calculator, and that's what it has told us. And that's good so far. So the other thing we're going to do now the arithmetic. Okay, so hapa tunaweza kuja tufanye tu like 5 plus 6, yeah, something like 5 plus 6, and you just say print. You want to print 5 plus 6 and run it, and you can see nimepata 11. Okay, so because I don't want Staki the first line ijionyeshe tena, I can just comment it, and I don't want to delete it. I can comment it. So in Python, a comment, you just use a hash. So when the nini is running, itakuja and it ignores. Ikipata, it will be like, okay, I'm not supposed to touch that line. So it will proceed to the next line and execute what is there. So if we run it again, our output is 11. So we'll go back and let's say tunataka another nini. We can do something like 10 times 6. 10 times 6, which will give us 60. And yeah, we have our calculator ready. That's it. That's it. Anyway, I'm kidding. So in as much as, yeah, this will work, high coefficient, because I mean, not everyone is conversant with code. Yes, in it to basic, but it's kind of not nini haibambi vile. Okay, so what if we just create a simple program? We have our user, tutamwambia okay, do this. Jua tutaki like maybe hatakuwa anaelewa what is here. We can just tell them we'll be creating like variables. So a variable itakuwa ya kustore the value, so that instead of you having to edit this every time, you can just come here and put your x and your y. And then hapa mbele you can just now come and whatever value of x and y will be there, we'll just replace it easily. So yeah, the user at least anajua, okay, I can just come here and do 2 and I do a 6 and I run. That will run. But still we have a challenge because we don't want the user to interfere with code. We want the user to like an input from somewhere. The same way you're using an application, we can give you a form field. Hatukupatia like the code uende add to kondani. We'll give you like a form field. So in Python we have the input and then a text that you want to give the user. You can also leave it blank. So for an input itakuja hivi, you can see ikitu inaanza kublink because I'm supposed to give something. And if I put something like 5 and enter, itakuja hapa mbele. But I can decide to make it user friendly by putting the same way I was doing for print. But what the difference between print and input? Print is an output function and input is an input function. So for print, it will output whatever is here. But for input, it will take whatever input we've given it and store it in the variable of x. So variables are just zinatumika for being reused. So for input, we're going to be like, what's your first number? What's your first number? And yeah, we can give them space ya kujibu. So what's your first number? I can say 12. And imekuja katuletea 12, which is an error, and I'm going to show you shortly. And next we're going to do the same for y, and we'll ask them what's your second number. What's your second number? So let me run it again. So what's your first number? I'll say 12. 12 itaenda ikuwe stored in variable x, which will now be reused hapa. And what's your second number? 10. This is supposed to give me 120. Oh wait, 10. What's happening? What's your first number? 10. What's your second number? 20. And yeah, we can see there's an error. So connect to our data types. Right now, if I took this and this, okay, let me do an addition first of all, in order to see part of that error. So let's do an addition. And what's your first number? 10. What's your second number? 20. Unaona our answer is 10 and 20 because by default the input's supposed to expect a string. So this is how it will be treated. Nimechukua a 10 plus a 20. These ones will be marked as strings. So it will be like a 10 plus a 20 and it should give me a 10, 20. So I want to tell the I want to sort of ipatia like a disclaimer that whatever value I'm supposed to get here should be an integer. So what's an integer? An integer is just a number. And whatever we have here, okay, is text in string. Right now we want to work with an integer because the number that we expect is an integer. Beza could perform the calculations here. So I can just come and wrap this. I really don't work with Python that much. Okay, let's test both of them. Which one will work. It says intiko nje ama intiko. Let's do it. I think int inakwanga nje. Intiko. The code looks weird. So basically what we are saying, hapa kikuja tupatie 10, okay, si tushapeana our value as 10 ikiwa hivi. This is what our 10 will be from the input, but now it will be wrapped into an integer. So this is how it will be represented. So int, and by doing that it will be converted into an integer. It's a process known as typecasting. So it will now int as an integer. Ni kama ile tuseme imekuwa hii process inaitangwa aje, imekuwa transformed. I don't want to use, okay, in computer science hizi terms zinaponga weird, especially ukiingia geometry and all that, do transformation, do translation, nini. So hii ni ile tu imekuwa, it has been converted to nini. So we can run this again, and my first number is 10, my second is 20, and my answer is 30. That has worked. My calculator is working. I'm getting two numbers. It's working well. But we can still make it more and more neat by, let's say, having the operation. Okay, we can also ask the user for like an operation, and then we can ask the user for an operation. So we can create like we can just call it ops. It's a variable called ops, and it equal to like what operation, like the operation that we want the user to need. So how would we put this? According to our, let's go back to our flow. So we were to welcome the user, ask for their name, ask for digits to compute, identify the operation. Let's see. Okay, let's assume we welcome the user. Initially, how we are going to ask for the user. We'll just use an input, and then we store, let's say, the name in a variable known as kitu kama name. And so for the operation, let me introduce the concept of if and else statement. So I'll just keep it simple. We can have an input, and you want to what operation would you like to carry out? And then you can give them the options: plus, minus, star, and division, and also modulus. So what operation would you like to carry out? And after that we can also print, actually to print like ops, so that you can see like the value in our stored up. So what's your first number? 10. What's your second number? 20. What operation would you like to nini? I'll give it a plus, and because tumesema we want to print the operation, to print the plus. So we want to use now that operation that we've been given to carry out nini iko hapa. So I can just come here now, introduce if statements. So just read if statement as how you would just use if in real life. So if ops, remember ops is now that value in imekuwa stored. So the ops can be something like plus. So I can say if ops is equals to plus. Hiyo ni yenye iko hapo. We just want to print, yeah, you can say you want to print something like x plus y. X plus y. Let's try it. What's your first number? 10. What's your second number? 20. What's your operation? Plus. Nimeweka a dot. Okay, nini imecrash. 10, 20. Operation will be a plus, and I've gotten a 30. So what if I want to get another operation? So this is where we have else if. So nitakuja hapa and I'll be like, okay, else if, what if I want my operation equal minus. So I just want to print now. I want to print x minus y. Alafu again, sorry, issue C, we'll just use L if. Yeah, L if oops is equals to multiplication. We want to to a Python. So also remember that hapa kuna kinaitwa indentation, creating the space in hapa. By default your IDEs will do it for you once you make the colon. So this is just like a block, like if this is if this condition is true, execute here. Else, kama the first condition isn't true, execute the second one. Else if the third one. So you can have as many in here as you can. And hapa tutakuja ni just say print and then x star y. And yeah, tunaweza endelea over and over again. I'll just do a copy pasting. And this was a division and a modulus. For those who don't know modulus is like a division, but it gives you like the output of, and the reminder that you get after dividing. Let's say I want to divide 10 by 2. 10 by 2 will be 5 and the remainder is 0. So if I do like 10 modulus 5, I should get my answer as 0 because it's taking the remainder. So let's run this. What's your first number? 10. What's your second number? 30. What operation would you like to carry out? You can do the division. And imeniletea 300. Is that real? 10 divided by 30. 10 divided by 30 is 300. Let's see. Yeah, it's not making sense. I forgot to change this. So I'll also change this and this here. Look on the copy paste and I forgot. So this is how if statements can be used. So the reason I was telling you before we get into tech, you have to learn some of these basics. You can use this in like in like, let's say you're designing an application and you want to check the login status of a user. So assume it's a mobile app. I open the mobile app and I have to check for, let's say, okay, kuna various things that you can look for. The first one is this user logged in. Because start like, imagine if we had a scenario where you have to log into an app, how much your account every time you open an application. So that can be like that's how you can apply logic to your application or whatever you're building. Something also can maybe, let's say if you're dealing with to come finances, is the balance sufficient? Kama iko sufficient, let a prompt ya do you want to fuliza vitu hizo. So that's basically ni ile tu logic ya what if this doesn't work, what if we want another way, just having if. Yeah, but now we are trying to represent it with code. Yeah, in short, only the basics. You can kila language itakuwa na hizi vitu, but you just have in syntax too different, but all this will be there. So that's it for like our basic calculator. And yeah, I guess that's it for basic calculator. sijui if Rogers, you're satisfied with that. So that's for the if, elif, and finally if you want to close, you can just say else. Else ni ile tu, okay, hatuna kitu ingine ya kusema because you're not in the options. So else, we can just say I'm tired. Yeah, no further options. I'm tired, no other options. Yeah, but you can make this as scalable as you can. The goal isn't to build a calculator. It's whatever, like how the whole logic works of programming. Atuweke akina Sokato hapa. But you can have that. Kuna kwanga na libraries. I guess mnakwanga na library ya maths. Something to do with cosine. Okay, so I'm not really sure. Always read the documentation. You can just go to the docs. I guess ni docs.python. You can get the documentation of whatever library you want to use. So libraries are basically libraries need to import. In a language like C, in order for you to use printf, you need a library, either stdio.h, which is standard input-output. Printf is an output, so you'll need that library for that need to work. If you don't include that, the compiler haitajua what printf is, so you have to include that. So in this case, if I want to perform like some mathematical functions, kama hizo cosine and whatever, I'll go and I'll import it. So apart from importing, let's build a guessing game actually. So you can do something. Okay, sijui kama hii itakuja na nini. So import haiko hapo. But by default inakujanga install with the Python interpreter. Once you install Python on your machine, you'll get that. So let's build it in our guess.py. Acha niache ku overview. Let me open it with VS Code. So guess.py. Let me open it. Let me create a file. Wikipedia py code py. Okay, and so just a disclaimer. So nilikuwa na notice most of you wakiwa first year, you were telling me that umekuja hapa kwa extensions, you've installed Python, but Python isn't working. So that's not how it works. Nitawaelezea the concept of having like a compiler or an interpreter for certain language in your system. So once uko na hiyo, you can run it. But for easy tuning extensions, what to do, zinakusaidia like to be more, sijui niseme which one, to be more efficient in whatever you're coding now. Let's say if it's a language like Python and I have nini ya Python hapo, you'll be able to like identify some things, vitu kama syntax highlighting, iniambia hapa kuna error. Even before I finish it, inaweza niambia, let's say I can have a typo, it will just highlight it for me. So unapata, this is just any IDE. It's just an environment where I can come and code. It has nothing to do with having a compiler or having anything. So let's create our guess.py game. So the logic of this game, we're going to have, okay, the logic of this game is to guess a game. I mean, is to guess a number, and that number should be generated randomly. I'll just to use the random package. And then tutambia the user a guess like the number, and we're going to give them 5 chances. They have to guess higher or they have to guess lower. So the first thing we can do, we can start with, okay, start to me x and y. Let me use human readable values. Okay, x, not human readable, just readable values inaeleweka na watu. So we can start by number to be guessed. And this will be 50. That's our number to be guessed. Alafu we can have our attempts. Our attempts zitakuwa just 5 attempts. And then we can now do like, okay, let's check the username and we store it. Okay, we'll ask for the input. So unaona the way my VS Code inaleta already the input, it's because of the extension. Otherwise, that's all an extension does. Installing an extension, I manage that your code will just run. Okay, so I'll just do an input and I'll ask for the username and I'll say enter your name. And what else? So we can now start with the guessing game. What else do you require for the guessing game? Okay, yeah, we can start. So we can do an if, okay, hatujiuliza the user, so user number, ama user guess. So our user guess, tutaweka to like a 0 in this case, so that our nini ikijua that the thing that is supposed to be stored here should be an integer. So to define earlier as a 0, and we can start. If, okay, we were supposed to ask the user, sorry about that. So tutafanya again an int and an input, int and then input, and what else? Enter number to guess. So if user guess is, we can start with something like less than. It's less than the number to be guessed. We want to tell the user. So first of all, we'll tell the user, we print it to them. We want to tell them guess. Okay, if the user guess, guess number kama 5. 5 is less than 50. So I want to tell them to guess higher. So guess higher. And then I will nataka to reduce the attempt. So I can do like attempts is equals to attempts minus 1. Or shorthand ya inakuanga attempts minus minus. Okay, Eric, does this apply in Python? Mnakuanga na minus minus. Does it exist?
The minus equal.
Or minus equal 1?
Yeah,
sorry. Okay, yeah, so this is our, okay, minus minus is near C, I guess. So this is basically the same as what we've done here, but it's just saying attempts is equals to attempts, because what we're doing to reassign the value of attempts by giving it an attempts minus 1. So the shorthand value need to attempts minus equal 1. It will reduce attempts equal 4. And then from there, we can also check if user guess is greater than the number to be guessed. I will just tell them to print, okay, we'll just print guess higher and guess lower. And tutakuja tuweke tena our attempts minus equal to 1. And okay, since by logic tuna any other options, it's either less than, greater than, or equal to. So since only one option imebaki equal to, it will be else. So else will print you got it and you won to Kayo. You got it. And we can run this. So by default, because it's VS Code, I can just run it na button, and I can just do the whole Python 3, and then I run that file. So enter your name, Alex. Enter a number to guess. So mine is 4. I've been told to guess higher, and again imeishia hapo. The attempts haven't worked. Again imeishia tu hapo. So we have a solution for that, and it's called loops. Loops sasa ni iterate this nini over and over again until attempts zote zimeisha. Because right now, remember hii kitu ita run from the start. So hii itakuja run line 2 run zote. So hapa nimechukua the logic because I've put it as 4. So if 4 is less than 50, that statement is true. Itakuja print guess higher, and then itakuja huku. These other parts don't apply. Na code imeisha. Code ishaisha and the program is closed. So the code is good, but it's not, from a user perspective, the user had to feel that nini. So this is now where we can introduce loops. We have types of loops. The first one is a for loop. So what a for loop does, inachukuanga like okay, for loop for for loop, I'll take, okay, in this meeting we are 20 participants. I want to give each and every one of you a suite. So ndakuwa nasema like for everyone in this meeting have a suite. So kumaanisha now nitaanza kuwaita Alex, Eric, Joe, Papi, Ivo. So that's how a for loop works. I want to check for every value that is somewhere. I'll show you how to use it because personally we are using it because we don't have an image. Okay, let me use an example. I'll just comment it out. Oh, pardon?
Sorry, zoom tena.
Iko better?
I think so.
Okay. I guess mnaweza, because this is baby, you can set full screen nini. Yeah, whatever device you're using. You can, I mean, whatever screen that I'm sharing, you can set it as a full device.
Kuna ni vile watu kwa YouTube.
Okay. Where was I? Okay, so here, yeah, so the concept of a loop, you can do something like for I, this is just a random need. Unaweza tumia I ama for participants in, let's say in this meeting, let me use a range. Tunakwanga na like a range function. So in the range of, I don't know, 1 to 10, I want to print participants. And if I come and run this, itakuja iniprintie each and every one of them. Itaanzia 1, 2, 3, 4 until the last value, which is, okay, technically itasimamia at 9. Yeah, because this inakwanga the start and the end. So okay, this is just a range function. Ndio niweze ku demonstrate here. So hapa you can provide an array. An array is just a group of elements of the same data type. So this is basically how a for loop works. So I just want to check for whatever is here, nipatie each and every one of them. That's how a for loop works. And for a while loop will work now in a different way. In order for while loop to execute, that statement must be true. So let me do while 1 is equal to 1. Is this statement true or false? As indicated in the chart, is 1 equal to 1? Is 1 equal to 1? Is that true or false? So if I run this, nitapata nimekuwa stuck in a loop because that statement is true, and yeah, it's true. There's nothing else we can do. It's true, so it will keep on running because as long as whatever statement is here is true, our will keep running. So let me kill it. Let me try something else. While 1 is equal to 0, this is false, obviously. What will happen? It will run and nothing will happen because as long as this condition it's not true, nothing should happen. Hadi hapo tuko sawa. If you're okay up to there, we can type z, y, x. Yeah, we can type x. If bado tuko sawa, kama sijapoteza mtu. That's how loops work, and so you can implement it in your in various ways. So an application is, okay, let's say if you have if you want to like get user data say you can just look through. Okay, an example is the Spotify API, and as a like I want to get all the songs that a certain artist, so I can just go to like the API and then maybe that specific endpoint and you corner the artist and nitapata all those nini songs zimewekwa maybe in some sort of an array. I can decide to look through them as a list. So that's how you can apply it in the real world. What you're learning here is just the logic and how to do it. From here, whatever language you guys will find fun to me, you can pick it from there. So in this case, we're going to use a while loop because we want it to run as long as attempts is equal to 0. Attempts ikifika 0, kama attempts zimeisha, it shouldn't run. So in our statement, we're checking whether this statement is true. Is attempt equal to 0? If it's true, don't run. And if it's greater than 0, run. So we're going to be using a while loop in this case. And we're going to be saying while attempts is greater than 0. If this statement is true, I guess we can now take all of these. Okay, and so how loops work is you have to indent them. But inakwanga so strict with indentations. So while attempt is this, tutanini. So let's try again. Enter your name, Alex, a number to guess, 40, guess higher. So I'm also stuck in a loop. I've been told guess higher, attempt ikakuwa -1. So let's read this vizuri. The reason kitu imerun here, it's because we haven't set our logic right. So while attempt is greater than 0, hapa ndakuja niseme, okay, this statement will be true because our number was 40. 40 is less than 50. Itakuja print guess higher and then attempt ikue decremented ikue 4. And then irudi tena kwa the while loop, check again if the attempt is greater than 0. It will execute until this condition isn't true. So uji attempts may reduce 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So now while attempts was 0, because while attempts is greater than 0, 0 can't be greater than 0. They have to be equal. The statement will equal false, and that's why to talk about the loop. So how can we deal with that? Considering we want to tell the user to keep guessing, so we can just come and ask them again for an input. We can come and ask them again for an input. So we can do user guess again is equals to int input. Actually, instead of kusema guess higher, yeah, we can put guess higher hapa hivi. Tunaweza weka guess higher hapo, and then I'll just copy this and include it up. And you tell them to guess lower. Ouch. So let's try this one more time. So enter your name, Alex, and how to guess. I'll start with 50. You got it. Yes, I got it with the first attempt, but nimekuwa stuck in a loop because my attempt is okay. Hakuna any, as long as I got it right, my attempt is okay. So hakuna any decrementing happening here. You've gotten it. So I can just say something like, is it a return? I mean, I break or continue. I can break it because once I've gotten it, I've broken. There's a break, like the loop. I can break out of the loop. So enter your name, Alex, enter number to guess 50. You got it, and you may break out of the loop. Let's not try again. 40. Enter a number to guess. Wait, I thought you may. Oh, yeah, sorry. Enter a number. Sorry, I'm confused later. So enter your name, Alex, enter a number to guess. 40, guess higher. 45, guess higher. 47, guess higher. 48, guess higher. 49, guess higher. 51, so kuweka the right one. 51. Attempts zangu zimeisha and I've been told imenini hapo. Attempts zimeisha and nimetolewa kwa the loop. So once nimetolewa kwa loop, I can decide to give them like a message because si ukishatoka kwa loop, the code will continue working. So I can just come and print you ran out of credits. You ran out of credits. So we can try again. Alex. So you can see the code may run. Once the loop has finished, you should go to the next line, which is run out of credits. And this will work also. This will also work if I guess it right, because itakuja hapa and inini hapo. So I think you'll have to like sort of take this uiweke hapa or what? Not really. Let me see. Should it be outside the loop? Okay, I guess we'll think about that later. So another issue that we can have in our game is Should we check the attempt? Okay, for me, this work. Okay, so far that's it about loops and meaning. What is this thing called? Loops and if statement. Yeah, I'm trying to think of something else. Mnipatie ideas. So, okay, isn't the basics that you can get from a language? So upon the apatia 2 homework, go pick a language, do it, and then, oh yeah, functions. That's what I actually. So, yeah, one thing to Nawambia before we even continue, pick a language, soma, practice daily until it won't get just easy to nini. I don't do much with Python, that's one apata. Pia was having like some hiccups here and there trying to remember the syntax, but as long as one of the basics of programming, it's easy to do this. So for the functions, let me do something here. So for the functions, we can have a function. Okay, let's create a function. So in function, what we declare them using the def keyword and then the name of the function. So this function can be, let me think for some. Yeah, we can say fight. The function ya fight too. So in our fighting, what do we want to do? We just want to print, I'll beat you to play. And then how we usually call this function, we'll just do like fight. Utakuja tu uiite hapa. Because if I come and run this, it will come and it will be like, okay, fight. What does fight do? It will go back and equal like fight inafanya hii. That's how a function works. But now let's put it in real practice. So we can have like a function that does something. The purpose of a function inakwanga for reusability. If we are to like create a okay, it's used for reusability so that I don't have to like use something over and over again. I can just reuse it by calling that function. Yeah, I'm trying to think of one example that I'm going to use to demonstrate functions. Yeah, we can still use our calculator. Sijui iko kwa history. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Wait, our calculator iko here. We lost it. Oh, I was supposed to demonstrate in a random. So in this case, tunajua our nini. We already know like we already know the number to be guessed. What if I don't want to know it? I can just come here and use a function known as random. And because random haiko recognized, we have to import it. So I can just come up here and do like an import random. So up I'm going to be using random dot randint. Randint is random integer, and then I can give it a range of 1 to 100. So it will just give me a random number between 1 to 100. Alafu itakuja store in that variable. Alternatively, I can just come and say, kama staki kutumia this random.randint. Randint, remember it's random integer. I can just say from random. Now from that library to random, from random, I want to import random integer, randint. And then nikikuja hapa, I can now use randint directly without having to call them. So this will just give me a random integer that I can now guess. Because yeah, we are playing a game and we don't want to cheat. Okay, I was to introduce functions. Let me just code something real quick that we are addition and subtraction. So I can do like, okay, I can do like an x is equals to int. Okay, so let's use AI. See to show how the code is working. Let's use AI for our inline suggestions. Only my unit has been disabled. Really. So I can do like an int and ask for any first number. I can have y as my second number. Okay, now you're allowed to use AI because we share where it's working. So I want to like do addition. Okay, Clarison, how do you know at this point that you need a certain library? The documentation, it's never illegal to Google. If you feel like unahitaji something, Google, you'll get the documentation of how to use it. Because honestly, easy libraries ni mob and you can't have them all in your head. So documentation is always there. Enda tu kwa the Python website and you'll find what you're looking for. Yeah, that applies to everything. An example is kama unafanya mobile and you want to like implement nini into like a third party integration in your app. Just read the documentation. That's the documentation is there. It will show you how to do it. So usijisumbue tena kushika hizi vitu zote kwa akili. Yeah, search it online. Make Google your best friend. So in this case I want to create like various nini. Si nakumbuka initially we were coming alafu tunaanza statement nyingi. So let's do like if okay, ilikuanga operation ops is equals to, oh, I forgot kuweka input hapa. Input. So I'm using Copilot to autofill. So I want to do like if operation is equal to a plus, what if I don't want to print directly x and y? I can have like I can just call a function, make it much cleaner. I just call this function. Okay, I can call a function and function usini add. Niseme tu ni hivyo. If the operation is that I want to add, that way is the function. So I can just come and create it. So my function will be add, and what it will be doing, itakuwa tu ina return. I can now return a value which is x plus y. So in short, if I call this, okay, this is my function in it will add, it will return x and y. So sahi, if I just come and call this function, okay, if I come and call the add function, it should return, let's say my x was 1, my y was 10, it should return 11. So it could return 11. In short, this will be 11. And yeah, you can now decide to either print it. So I just want to print whatever add is. Remember, add has returned 11. So chukua add as a sort of function variable because it will now carry the value that has been returned. Or you can also, instead of returning, it depends with how you want to use it. You can also print it directly here. You can just come and say I want to print x and y. Kumaanisha you don't have to print it. You can just call that function, and by calling it already itakuja with the print statement itself. So why am I using a function? I can have another piece of code ukombele, and I don't want to like rewrite print x and y again. This is an example, and it's easy to write it, but your function is like too long, and you don't want to like keep using it. Like, I mean, so every time I'm like doing an operation, I can just call this function again and again and again. I call, okay, I'm calling the add function, I'm calling, yeah, instead of having, in short, for usability, I can now reuse it over and over again. So a use case of this, you can have a function that just does, okay, pia who have clean code, like your code at least in a clean, you don't have to like mix some things in your code, like kitu kama the login, sitaki kuimix with my code, nakuja hapa nasema maybe I want to log in a user. Sasa nitakuja nasema maybe if the button has been pressed, niandike the whole code to log in a user. I want to do like kitu kama if button has been clicked. If button has been clicked, let me just call the login function. So napata this ni okay. itu nimeandika in English, this isn't how it should be. So if this button has been clicked, I want to log in. Because unapata the login can even be in a different folder, and with this, I'm only having 2 lines to debug, and I can use maybe the login somewhere else. I don't know where else because login happens only once, but this is just an example. Instead of having to like kuona all that line. So in the case where I'm doing kitu kama I want to debug, at least I can now go to the specific file ya login, and I'm like, okay, let me now check where I'm supposed to debug. Instead of you having to like have one file and you're gonna like over 1,000 lines and making it hard for you to deal with. Yeah, I guess that's all I have actually. That's all I have. In short, like, okay, it's not all I have, but it's all I can give you right now, because on Ascapia we learn how to read the documentation. So in this case, if you're doing something like Python, you can just come to Python and documentation you call Python docs. You can just go to the Python documentation and just know what you need. Kuna hii statement nimetuma kwa group RTFM, read the fucking manual. That's what you usually say. Like, yeah, always read the manual. Jua like what is happening. Any documentation ya Python is weird. Akina Eric. So I have no idea what I'm looking at. Let me use an example of something that we do daily, Flutter. So let's say I want to integrate kitu kama Smile ID on my application. I don't know how it's done. So nakuja and I'll be like, okay, Flutter Smile ID. Smile ID is that party nini. So naweza kuja to the documentation of Smile ID and they'll show me how to put it on my Flutter application. I can just read through the docs. Basically wamekuelezea vizuri like, okay, hii ni the change log release notes. So I can just come and do the nini. And also one good thing I noticed, some documentation size imeanza kuwa beginner friendly. I mean not beginner friendly but AI friendly. So AI reads markdown vizuri. You can just come and you can use it, you can just provide the markdown file ama use an MCP server. Unapatia AI insoma the documentation on your behalf and then it does what it does. I can also decide maybe to that specific package and I just read like, okay, how am I going to do this? Itakuja tu imenielezea step by step. First of all, I'll import the dependency, I'll initialize it. Hizo vitu zote. So make documentation your friend. Yeah, the documentation inazadi kuwa AI. I mean, we are in a new era of AI. Stanza kuambia sijui don't use AI, but as long as you know what you're doing, use AI. Isikuwe tu ni ile unakuja hapa unafungua cloud code or codex or whatever and you like build me this and unakaa unadum scroll, your work is just typing yes. Okay, I do that and it's good pia, but if you at least know what is working behind the scenes, that's what will get you to the industry, that's what will get you the job, because at least itakuwa much easier for you because you know what you're doing. Ukishapata that job, now go and vibe code uko ndani na uangushe systems or whatever you people do. So that's my advice. Always read the documentation. Like, read the documentation, go poa, and also check the roadmap. Kuna this menu of roadmap.sh. There is one, okay, nimeona za kuuliza what you're going to install for this session. That's a preference. If you feel like you want to do Golang kama mimi, you're welcome. Kujeni tufanye Golang. We do it. If you feel like you want to do Rust, do your roadmap hapa. If you want to do Rust, kuja click on this. Roadmap.sh is a good nini. Unaweza watch tutorial YouTube ya 10 hours. Ufike by the second hour utaboeka, you look for another tutorial, you start over from scratch. Okay, all of us have different ways of learning. Kuna mse anaweza fuata that whole 10 nini tutorial. You can use AI to learn. Niambie like play the role of a senior software engineer trainer and teach me this and this and this, make it project based, blah blah blah. Yeah, just it depends with how you learn it. You just make sure once unaelewa to the basics, trust me, it's easy to pick from there. Enough with the motivational speaking. Sasa kuna mtu akona swali, you can raise your chat, you can type, you can raise the chat, you can type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand or unmute, and yeah, you can do any of that. Najua nimeongea sana nimewabu, but mtazoea tu. So you can see kila language iko like their own nini. So understanding a language isn't enough, but it gives you like a tool. Mnakumbuka si tunajenga nyumba. So mimi naweza tumia simiti, mtu mwingine anaweza tumia matope, mwingine anaweza tumia bigiji kushikanisha. It depends on what you're using. Yeah, but jua tu in the end kila language iko na their own power, kila language iko na their own weakness, and yeah, it's better at least ujue first of all the language that you want to nini, and then from there you can know how to handle it vizuri, kutumia vitu kama okay, writing unit tests, writing integration tests, hapo hivyo, doing data structures with it, and also vitu more. Okay, Rust nakaa complicated. It was a bad example. Let me let me get something else. But in short, what I'm trying to mean is okay, from YouTube, your def add unaweza anywhere in your code. Okay, I'm not sure how it works in Python. Because I guess Python in a read line by line. So okay, Eric, can you like answer that? Because it depends. Some languages zitakubali uweke huko juu, zingine ukiweka juu itakuja ifike hapo iseme the function is recognized. Okay, maybe Eric can help me answer that.
Okay, I feel like you can write it anywhere. Sababu ukiandika haikuleta error, but a good practice sababu hii code unaandika hautasoma peke yako. So ni poa you write that function juu right before you call it. Ndio if another developer anakuja kusoma, at least he understands what's going on before itumike.
Yeah, thanks Eric. Because I know for a language like C, you have to write it below, and the utaandika below, you'll have to declare it huko juu that you have a function, and then sasa ndio the compiler will ignore that and itaenda ipate huko chini, because I know for C lazima uandike after. It depends with the language. You know, kila language iko na their own rules. The same way we have like religion having their own rules. Au atasema maybe we do this, we don't do that. It depends. Yeah, so for me, naweza recommend once at least you know what to do with the language. Anza sa kuisoma sa pole pole. Yeah, anza kuisoma pole pole. Evans, do I need to have a laptop? Okay, I feel like that's a rage bait, but acha tu nijibu. It's preferred to have a laptop because yeah, some of these things ziko built for a laptop. Like, stay kujibu vibaya. But let me just answer it maybe for someone who is on the call asking the same question. Assume I want to run like a heavyweight application. Utapata, simona kitu kama Python. In order for me to use like the random function, I have to have the Python interpreter on my machine. So napata kuna vitu wezi install kwa simu. Yeah, so it's preferred to have a laptop if you want to get serious in the building. Yeah. So you can keep asking the questions. So venye niliambia, in order for you to like pick a language, tunaweza enda like, let's say you want to work at Google, unaweza kuja careers.google.com and pick that role that you want. Let's say I want to be a software engineer to Google. Kuja tu hapo kwa the careers. Okay, the role that you want. Kama watu wa AI, I guess they do more of Python. So let's just say software. Okay, ziko wapi jobs? I'm not a fan of searching, so jobs. Okay, apart from site reliability manager, if you feel like this is your job, that's okay. So, okay, one thing I loved about Google, how can like that, because at least they understand tech. If you're good with one language, it's easy to transition. So as long as you can experience with one or more programming languages, don't try to learn all the languages. Think to learn on a first years. Unasoma C, unasoma C++, none of that is important. So get one language, be perfect in it, and it to me, if you go, let's say, to a job interview at Google, you'll do it here with any language of your choice. They just want to see your thought process, how juggling what language you need. Hizo zingine ni ile ushesikia you learn on the job. Yeah, so you can just come and check. Okay, for Google on recommend Golang. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Kitu kama security technical lead. At least hapo unaona specify. It's C++, C and Rust because this is more of cluster management. Okay, guess Kubernetes was written in Golang. Unaweza check the products that they are using. So for most nini unapatanga, most enterprises they use Java, zile languages za kitambo, PHP, like for me I just do Golang, Python new vibe code, same to JavaScript, Flutter, Dash, yeah, I do that. Watu wa networking learn nini zinaitangwaje, learn Python pia for automation. Yeah, mtaandika like a lot of automation scripts. That's my thought, sijui. Yeah, but nini that, and also actually hakunanga like not every stack ni about coding, but the scripting part is important because they care about how fast you can nini. So I was looking for like software engineering roles. Hii part iko wapi? Acha tu ni search na choose. Okay, so for Google unajua kuna different branches. You can be, kuna different fields. You can be in the Gmail team, you can be in the Google Photos team. It depends with whatever platform they use and whatever language is used there. So unapata for kama our sewa Google Photos, this is a senior engineer for mobile iOS. Sioni wakiitisha a lot, but considering it's iOS, then they expect you to be good at Swift UI, and Objective-C because that's what is being used specifically for that. And that's when you kujua what you want to do before you even think of starting hii kitu yote. Because kama mimi nataka kuwa an iOS developer, I know that these are the languages I need. So ukishashika hiyo, ushike vizuri, do a lot of data structures. Isi ati ni kitu ndaanza kufanya kesho. Do it daily. Hata ukiwa perfect in it, do it daily. Like practice makes perfect. Kama ni senior software engineer for AI and machine learning. Okay, hapa naona kuna a lot of nini. Okay, it's one or more programming languages. Yeah, that's good. Kama ni wasi wanadai kwenda nao to the Google Cloud to do system engineering. I think ni akina Evans. Yeah, in short, a language doesn't matter a lot. Logic yako ndo inakutetea. Yeah, can you like do this vizuri? Like, yeah, so for watu wa nini GKE, Australian Kubernetes is written in Golang. So unapata hapa they recommend C++, Go or Java. Ukiona like one of those and you're perfect in it, ukiingia they'll just take your skill and whatever, like this guy can learn better here. Watakuweka huko. So I guess ni watu mko sawa sahi so far with that, but I'm not saying what I've taught is enough. It's actually like 10%, and then it's a some learn. But in the meantime, mnaweza kuja hapa and click apply. I already believe in you guys. Yeah, you're job ready sahi. So yeah, mimi I'm done. Nimemaliza. I don't want to keep you guys for long. So somehow we'll be finishing at 11:34. So yeah. So kesho we'll meet also at 10 to discuss now about frameworks, and then from there tuachane kila mtu sasa anze kupick like that you can now research and pick that language that you feel is comfortable with you. Na pia usijitese, ukiona Java ni ngumu usiachane nayo, uliza other people are doing Java, get up pia watu wa Golang, mnaweza sema okay tushikane tusomange nini. Sasa mko sawa, go and apply for these jobs. Unaona hii ni nini, go apply, usishtuke na nini, already you know Python. Yeah, mimi nimemaliza, so msipoongea I'll just keep on saying unnecessary stuff. Nangoja muulize maswali, or you can just unmute and give a vote of thanks, ama tuambie kitu umesoma. But tomorrow we'll come and discuss about more of frameworks and Yeah, more of frameworks. Okay, let me invite Eric atuambie like what languages are used in what languages are used in AI and machine learning, and then Evans pia atatuambia like the same, so that you guys